Om. 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 Om Vasudeva Vasudam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. Namaskaram. Welcome to our 6th series of Vichara Dashakam. Before I continue, if everyone can have their cameras off and their microphones muted, please. Okay, we'll begin. So the language format of this lecture will be in English, and our speaker today will be Brahmacharini Shripriya Chaithanya ji of Chinmaya Mission, UK. Brahmacharini Shripriya Chaithanya was born in Nairobi, Kenya, where she was first introduced to the tradition of Advaita Vedanta through Chinmaya Mission. Her family emigrated to London in her childhood, and she continued to attend youth classes with the organization. After graduating with a bachelor's degree in politics from the University of York, she took part in a one-year community service-oriented program for youth offered by Chinmaya Mission in India and spent time volunteering at educational institutions in Chennai. Inspired by this experience and previous exposure to scriptural study, she joined a 2-year residential Vedanta course at the Sandipani Sadhanalaya Ashram in Mumbai and was initiated into monastic order in September 2016. She is the resident teacher of Chinmaya Mission in the UK and shares the message of Advaita Vedanta through discourses and study groups, workshops, and retreats. After Shripriyaji's talk, if the audience has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat in the respective platforms you are watching on, either on this Zoom chat or on Facebook chat, and they will be compiled and presented. Now, without taking any more time, I will pass the floor to Shripriyaji. Om Namo Narayanaya. Shripriyaji, Hari Om.
Hari Om. Namaste, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for having me on this platform. It's an honor to be on with such esteemed speakers that have been on in the past few weeks. We'll begin with an invocation. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mata Ramo Matpita Ramachandraha Swami Ramo Matsakha Ramachandraha Sarvasvam Me Ramachandro Dayaluhu Nanyam Jane Naiva Jane Na Jane. Hari Om. The topic for the talk today is a higher vision. We will slowly get there, but we will discuss a few things before we come to speak about this higher vision. The first question is, why are we having this discussion? Why are we talking about vision? What does it mean to have a higher vision? So when we talk about higher vision, or when we talk about why anything is necessary in life, the first thing to know is, what are we all looking for? all of us, whether we are wherever we are in the world, in Canada, in the UK, in India, wherever we might be, whatever age we are, what are we looking for? We are all ultimately looking for the same thing. That is, we are looking for peace. We are looking for fulfillment. We are looking for happiness. We are looking for contentment. And in the language of our scriptures, we are looking for sukha prapti, the attainment of happiness, and dukkha nivritti, the removal of sorrow. It's not enough for us to say that we want peace or happiness. At the same time as we want that, we also want the removal of sorrow. If somebody tells you, you can have everything you want for the rest of your life, but every day you will have to have a headache or a stomachache or a backache or something. In other words, you will have whatever makes you happy, but you will have something mixed in which gives you sorrow. It's unlikely that we'll agree to such a bargain because we want happiness that is not mixed with any kind of sorrow. We want happiness that is effortless. How do we get this happiness? How do we get this peace that we are all looking for? Does it depend on seeking out some things and avoiding other things? So if I avoid everything that I don't like and I seek out the things that I like, can I be happy for the rest of my life? Does it depend on saying something or not saying something? So if I speak well, speak kindly to everyone, then does that mean that I can be happy? If I speak only the truth, does that mean I will be happy for the rest of my life? Does it depend on what I do or what I don't do? So if I do certain things and I avoid certain things, then can I secure this peace or happiness for myself? This happiness that we are looking for, this peace, how do we get it? So the first thing that we want to recognize is whatever it is we experience, joy, sorrow, everything in between, it is all a result of action. Whatever we experience, whatever experiences we are having, they are coming to us as a result of actions that we have performed in the past. This is what we refer to in very simplistic terms. We can understand this as the karma siddhanta, the principle of action. Basically, what it means is we reap what we sow. For every action that we perform, there is a result. That result will come to us. That result must be experienced. It may be now, it may be tomorrow, it may be in 10 years' time, it may be in another lifetime. But that result will come back to the performer of the action. And no experience, no result that we experience comes just by itself. Nothing happens just like that. It is a result of action that we have performed. Otherwise, if we say that, no, it's not our actions that are responsible. There is, things are just happening randomly in the world. This is what some people say, right? That how can you propose this principle of karma? We don't know what's happened in past lives. Some people say we don't even know that there are past lives or future lives. Everything is just happening randomly. But that means if everything is happening randomly, all of our experiences, it also means everything in the world should happen randomly. There should be no cause and effect. So you should be able to plant a mango seed. If you're lucky enough to live in a country where you can grow mango trees, you should be able to plant a mango seed and an apple tree should grow. Because everything is random, right? So this is clearly not the case. There is a law of cause and effect that functions in the universe. The other alternative is, if our karma is not responsible for the experiences that we have, the alternative is there is some higher being, whom we may call God, who is dispensing all these results. So God is responsible. That also poses a problem, because if God is responsible for distributing the results of action, then why is he favorable to some and unfavorable to others? Because clearly some people live an easier life than others. Some people have more, some people suffer more. So if God is responsible, that means God is very cruel, and God is also partial. He likes some people better, so he gives them all the nice things in life. He doesn't like some people, so he gives them all the suffering. This cannot be the case, because then God is not God. If God is cruel or partial, that being, that entity, cannot be called God. So it's very clear that it is karma that is responsible. We experience whatever we experience because of whatever actions we have performed. So if we want to be happy, then we should perform actions which give us happiness, right? Then we can ensure our happiness, we can ensure our peace. So do good actions, get good results, be happy. Simple as that. It sounds very simple. And we know that all actions give their result, good, bad, or indifferent. And whatever we do because we are looking for happiness. In the Bhagavatam, it is pointed out, Sukhaya karmani karoti lokaha. Everybody is doing action, sukhaya, for happiness. The result is something else. But we are doing action, we are performing actions because we want to be happy, because we believe that there is a possibility of happiness. If we didn't believe that, none of us would get out of bed in the morning. If we really didn't believe that there was a chance that we could be happy. Whatever we do, it's because we still believe that there is that possibility there. I can live my life in such a way that I experience happiness. So if we say that we can perform action, good actions, those actions will give a result. That result will make us, or will be, of joy, of happiness. Because if you do something good, then you get a good result. If you do something bad, you get a bad result. They're very simple. But the question that we then have to ask is, what does it mean to do good? Right? We are doing good because we want a good result, because that good result will allow us to experience happiness or peace. What does it mean to do good? Does it mean to be kind to everyone you come across? Does it mean to do a lot of charity? Does it mean to take up a cause and fight for that in the world? What does it mean to do good? What we can understand is the first thing it means is to do your dharma. In other words, fulfill your responsibilities. This word dharma itself is a very loaded term. It can mean a lot of things. So let's try and understand, what do we mean when we say do your dharma? Fulfill responsibilities. What responsibilities do we have? So the first thing is that all of us, when we are born in this world, we have 5 debts that we have to try and seek to repay. So our basic responsibilities of all of us is to act in a way that will try and repay these debts. Not financial debt, not that kind of debt, but when we are born, even before we are born, we have already been given so much. The first is we owe a debt to the natural world, to beings in this world, but also to this natural world itself. And therefore, our first responsibility is to be good to the world. In our modern context, what does that mean? Living in a way that is environmentally friendly, being conscious of our output in this world, how much waste we're producing. All of these things. This is the first. The second is we have a debt to society. Society gives us so much. So we do community service, or perhaps we do some charity. We give back to the community, to the society that we live in. This is the second. So the first means looking after the world. The second means looking after society in whatever way that is possible for me. The third is we have a debt to our ancestors, to our family. And therefore, another responsibility is to try and repay that debt. To do good to our family, to do good to our ancestors. So traditionally in the Vedic context, this means performing the Shraddha, okay, for ancestors who have passed on. But it also means living harmoniously as part of the family and contributing to the family, taking care of everyone. Not causing problems, at the very least, not causing conflict or friction. This is the third. The fourth is there is a lineage of teachers that have made knowledge available to us in all the different fields of knowledge. But particularly in our Vedic context, all the teachers, all the acharyas, the rishis, we are indebted to for making this Vedic wisdom available to us. And therefore, we owe a debt there. The fact that in this day and age, you can very easily access a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. you can access copies of the Upanishads. We owe a debt to our teachers for making that possible for us. So this is another responsibility, to repay it. And finally, we owe a debt to God, because everything that we have ultimately comes to us from the Lord, from God. And therefore we try to repay that as well. So we all have these responsibilities in life, and when we try and fulfill them, we are doing our dharma, we are doing good, as we said. This is the first general responsibilities that everybody has. The other way of thinking about dharma is that according to our position in life, our stage in life, we have certain responsibilities, and we try to fulfill them to the best of our ability. So as a student in life, my dharma is to study, to learn as much as I can. As a householder, to take care of the family, to contribute to society. So according to our stage in life, we have responsibilities to fulfill. When we do that, we are performing our dharma. But that is not all. Not only do we have to perform the right action, that means not doing anything which causes harm to others, as well as all of the things which we mentioned, causes harm to others and also to ourselves. As well as that, as well as doing the right action, we also want to have the right attitude. We have to do good, but we have to do it with the right attitude. What is the right attitude? Without selfishness or expectation or a sense of entitlement to the result, with gratitude, with surrender, with acceptance. And when we live in this way, performing our dharma with gratitude for all that we have, with surrender in terms of the results that come to us, and also acceptance, the outcome is that we get good results because we have been doing good action, but we also get a mind that is free from all that mental dirt that we have accumulated. It's free from selfishness, if we put it simply. And we also cultivate devotion along the way. So this is briefly how we can understand doing good. However, doing good to attain a good result is a great intention to have, but action is limited. And that means the results of action will also be limited. So if we are seeking happiness by seeking the results of good actions, the happiness that we get will be limited because the cause of that happiness is limited. Very simple example. We all feel hungry, right? What do you do when you feel hungry? You eat something. But a few hours later, what happens? You feel hungry again. And then again, you have to eat something. That's not enough, right? At least 3 times a day, sometimes even more. Because the action that we are performing is limited. The result will be limited. We will have to keep repeating that action. Wouldn't it be great if we could just eat once and be done? We would avoid so many problems. But unfortunately, it's not possible. We have to keep eating and drinking and thinking about what to eat and drink. It takes so much time. action is limited, the result will be limited. So if we seek happiness through action, our happiness will be limited. In addition, if I say wake up tomorrow morning and I say, okay, from today I'm only performing good actions, I will not do anything wrong. That doesn't mean that from tomorrow onwards I will only experience good results. Why not? Because what about all of the actions that I have done before? If they're not all good, those results will also have to be experienced. So some past actions may be there which are still waiting to give us a result. So we will still have to experience some sorrow, some suffering. In addition, even if we perform only good action and we get only good results, just by doing good, we have not changed anything about our identity. Why is this important? Our identity right now, is it finite? Is it limited? Or is it unlimited? It's limited, right? We are identified as a limited being. And if nothing else causes us sorrow, this will. The fact that we are limited, it brings us sorrow. So it's clear that doing good with the right, even with the right attitude, is not necessarily enough to secure that permanent peace and happiness that we are looking for. We have to move from doing to knowing. Why? Why knowledge? Why knowing? Because knowledge does not come to an end. When we know something, that knowledge remains with us. What if you have a bad memory? Then it takes a little while to recall, but that knowledge is never lost completely. The times tables that you learnt when you were 7 years old, 8 years old, you still know that. It may take you some time to crank up the engine and start remembering again, but we still know it. It's still there somewhere stored. Knowledge is not lost. So when I know something, that stays with me. But any object of knowledge, anything that is known, is it finite or infinite? Whatever you know, any object of knowledge, those objects of knowledge also come to an end, right? So is there something which we can know, which doesn't end, which isn't finite, and which can give us happiness, which can give us that peace, that happiness that we are looking for? So the Upanishads say, yes, there is something knowing which there is complete removal of sorrow and there is attainment of permanent peace. In the language of the Upanishads, Tarati Shokam Atmavit. This is the answer. The knower of the self, Atmavit, Shokam Tarati, crosses over grief, goes beyond sorrow. How is it possible that the knower of the self goes beyond sorrow? Because the self is In the language of the same Upanishad, the self is infinite. It is that where nothing else is seen, nothing else is heard, nothing else is known. It is one and it is infinite. Where there is otherness, where there is plurality, that object, that thing will be finite, it will be dying, it will come to an end. And if our happiness depends on that which is finite, will our happiness ever be infinite? Will our happiness ever be infinite if it depends on something which is finite? It cannot. So what is the vision that is required? The vision that is required is a vision of the self which is infinite, which is other than this body, which is other than even the mind, which is other than the ego, the sense of limitation. This is the vision that can give us permanent happiness, permanent peace. If I know myself free from limitation and infinite, eternal, then there is an end to sorrow for me. What brings us sorrow is bondage. It is the sense that we are bound, the sense of limitation. So we are seeking this vision of oneness. Here, sometimes there is a question, is this not impractical? Impractical to have a vision of oneness because we need to recognize differences to live in this world. It's very impractical to not see any differences. How will I walk? How will I talk? How will I eat? How will I speak? How will I do what I need to do if I can't tell the difference between me and everyone else? So we must understand that the vision of oneness is not one which ignores the apparent differences that we see right now. We find a discussion on different types of vision in the Bhagavad Gita. There, Sri Krishna gives us three options. He says there are three types of vision. One, the lowest vision, tamasic type of vision, is one where plurality may be recognized. We may see manyness. We don't have a vision of oneness. But instead, we become fixated on one thing without any reason or support for that fixation, and due to a lack of proper understanding and due to attachment. For example, say in terms of how we think of ourselves, the person who has this type of vision, one who fixates on the body as the self, has this tamasic type of vision. What do they say? This is me. Don't tell me that I'm different from my body. Don't tell me that I'm a jiva or anything else. That's not true. This is who I am. This is all that I am. Don't try and tell me anything else. With reference to God, such a person will say, only one particular form of God which I have accepted is the truth. Only, say, for example, somebody says, only Lord Rama is God. Nobody else. I don't accept anyone else as God. And Lord Rama, only one particular form, only one particular murti. This is a very narrow vision. Or somebody who says, Canada is the best country in the world. There is no one else. There should not be anyone else. It should be the only place. This is a very narrow, tamasic type of vision. This is the lowest vision. Slightly better than that, Sri Krishna says, is the Rajasic vision, where plurality is recognized and everything is seen as different, distinct. So when there is manyness, there is room for comparison. Comparison leads to competition. Competition leads to conflict. So this is what happens with this type of vision, where we identify everyone as different, as separate. We are always competing, and there is always anxiety about who will get the result and who will lose out. There are hierarchies. So I see myself as better than someone or as lower than another. So all sorts of insecurities are created. This is the result of this vision. Instead, what is the best type of vision? The higher vision. The sattvic vision, he says, is one in which in all beings and in all things, we can recognize one indivisible, unchanging truth. We are able to recognize what is common between everyone and everything in this universe. Instead of becoming fixated on the differences. Differences are seen, but they are overcome by the understanding of what is common. For example, say you go to a sweet shop, right? You go to a confectioner's, or you go to an Indian mithai store. What will you see? You will see sweets, right? In all different colors and shapes and syrups and dry and all sorts of things. So when you're a child, you get very fascinated by how everything looks. Everything looks different. But as an adult, you go into that sweet shop and you understand that everything is sugar, right? Everything is made of sugar. There may be other things added, some food coloring, something, but everything is sugar. Everything is one. This is the vision of oneness. Not just with regard to sweets, but with regard to the world, if we can see the same. We may all look different, but there is one truth which supports us all. And that truth, if we recognize as our own self, then this brings an end to all sorrow for us. This is what the Bhagavad Gita tells us. This is what the Upanishads tell us. That the vision of this self, which is infinite, is the solution to all of our problems. We already practice this vision. We may think, it sounds difficult to see that which is common in all of us. If you think about your own family, right? Within your own family, everyone is different. Everyone has different opinions, different likes and dislikes. Everybody looks different. People speak differently. We all have different occupations, different interests. And yet, do we not all see ourselves as part of the same unit? We all say we belong to one family. What is this? This is a vision of oneness. Because what unites us is more important than that which distinguishes us, which makes us different. In the community, within the community, there's so many different people, and yet we still identify as one community. This is what we have to recognize, not only in our family, in our community, in humanity. Not only in humanity, in the entire world. Not only that, all human beings have something which link them, but between human beings and other types of creatures and objects and nature, everything in this universe has one thread running through it, supporting it. As Bhagavan says in the 7th chapter of the Gita, everything is held together by me. Speaking of himself as that one truth which supports this entire creation. When we have the vision of that truth, that is the higher vision. As long as we focus on plurality, on duality, there is fear. There is a very famous statement, Dvitiyadvai bhayam bhavati, from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. In the Taittiriya Upanishad also, that it is pointed out, anyone who sees difference, tasya bhayam bhavati. That person will have fear. It's like if, for example, a child feels safest with their parents. Say for some reason the parent is, I don't know, the parent is dressed up, right? Say the child has never seen the mother with makeup, or father is wearing a mask or something for some fancy dress. Very often if the child sees that parent, they may start crying because they don't recognize who is this. As soon as the mask is removed, complete peace, at ease. As long as we think of someone as different, as separate, as unknown, there is fear. When we recognize this is one of my own, there is no fear. In the same way that it's pointed out that fear arises from separation, from duality, in the same way it's pointed out that when we have a vision of oneness, this higher vision, there is no more grief, there is no more fear. Tatra ko moha kashoka ekatvam anupashyataha. For the one who sees oneness, where is delusion, where is grief? There is no more. So I will just quickly summarize, so I know we're keeping time for questions. How did we begin? We are all looking for peace. We are all looking for happiness. Generally, how we try and find this peace or happiness is through action. We try and act in a way that secures happiness for us, whether that is by creating and maintaining relationships, by acquiring objects, by acquiring position, or just our everyday actions. We perform action to be happy. If we want more happiness, what should we do? Do our dharma, do it with the right attitude. Right? So there is general responsibilities, which we all have to fulfill, those 5 debts, but also according to our station in life, our position, we have certain responsibilities. Action by itself is not enough because action is finite. Because action is finite, the result of action will be finite, and we will not get that unending peace, happiness that we are looking for. Therefore, what should we do? We seek knowledge of that which is infinite, which is free of any kind of differences, that will allow us to achieve an end to sorrow and infinite peace. That truth, which is infinite, which is pointed out by the Upanishads, etc., that must be known not as something separate, as something different. That must be known as our own self. We live in the world, and when we live and focus on the differences between us, or we live with a narrow vision where we think only the thing which we are attached to is important, then we live in a world of conflict, and we cause sorrow and suffering for ourselves and people around us. Therefore, what is the highest vision? To know that despite our differences, there is this one truth, which is the same which exists in all beings and all things, and that one infinite truth is our own true self. This is the higher vision which, if we seek and if we attain, we bring an end to sorrow and we gain everlasting peace. This is the assurance of our teachers. This is the assurance of our scriptures. Okay, I will pause here, and if there are any questions, then I'm happy to take them.
Hari Om, thank you so much, Shripriya Ji, for the wonderful talk. We're so inspired this morning. Once again, thank you. Before we go into questions, we'll have just a short presentation on some temple announcements. If I can pass that on.
Hari Om. During the time Smitaji is going to consolidate all the questions, we'll quickly show you a small, brief introduction about the temple, the Guru Ayyappan Temple of Brampton. And this Brampton Guru Ayyappan Temple is located a few kilometers from the Toronto International Airport in Ontario, Canada. So what you see on the picture is the wonderful temple of ours enclosed in the building to suit the Canadian climate, the winter and the summer extremes which we have. So that's our temple. The main deity is Lord Krishna. And this is a temple from the outside. And on the bottom, you can also see the other Upadevatas as well. And our website is www.guruayur.ca. And this is the inside of the temple when we had all those functions. And currently, due to the COVID pandemic, the temple is currently closed, but all the pujas inside the temple are happening at regular time at the prescribed ritualistic scriptural ideas at every day. And what happens is, like, whenever we have these kind of pujas, we try to have e-satsangs. Typically every day at 5:40 p.m. we have e-satsangs where we have a small religious discourse followed by Deeparadhana or Arati at 6 o'clock. And on some important days we also have e-Deeparadhanas happening at different timings, e-darshanams happening as well. Because the temple is closed, the people need to connect with the temple, so we have all these kind of virtual online sessions, and our three priests do answer the questions and emails, and this is how we keep in touch with our community during this COVID-19 pandemic. And the screen that you see on this on your TVs or on your iPads or phones right now details the different or the 10 different virtual online classes and sessions which is offered by the temple. And all the medium of instruction for all these 10 sessions are in English, and these classes are open to all and it's offered free of charge. So we have people connecting from all around the globe for these classes. So if you're interested, do let us know. And what happens is like biannually, once in every 6 months, Guru Ayyappan Temple of Brampton, we conduct a series of prabhashans or sessions inviting different speakers. We had one last year called Prabodhana Ashtagams. And this year we decided to go with Vichara Dashagam. As its name suggests, Dashagams. We invited 10 eminent speakers. And this time we gave it a little twist. So we started inviting 10 eminent female speakers. So what you see on the list right now are the different female speakers who came and graced us. So Shripriya ji is the sixth one in the series, and the next speaker we have is the next Saturday at March 6th, and that's going to be a cardiologist from New York, Dr. Nisha Pillai, and she'll be talking about the powerful female characters of Ramayana. So, and additionally, we have quite a lot of pujas and satsangs and bhajans and detailed sessions happening. So around 10 to 12 events happen every month. So what you see on the screen is a snapshot of 6 of them that happened in the month of Jan. We just randomly picked it. So just going to show it to you. And our temple shares the information about the upcoming pujas, the temple events, the special events through social media. So it happens on the updates of the temple website, www.guruvayur.ca, or we send out regular weekly emails highlighting about the upcoming events. We post that on the Facebook, and we have a WhatsApp called Kshetra Vijnanam, where we keep constant updates as well. And there's a tweet account associated with the temple as well. So what I'll do is soon after this, I will post the WhatsApp invite link on the Zoom chat. So if you're interested, please join us. So these are the other details about the temple. And thanks for connecting. We will head back to Smita ji, who she must have already consolidated the questions for Brahmacharini Shripriya Chaithanya ji. Go ahead,
Okay,
Smita.
thank you very much, Shaji. Shripriya ji, so I've compiled 4 questions for you. So I have the first question here. If good karma always leads to positive results, does the law of attraction play any role in our lives? Oh, I believe you're on mute, Shripriya ji.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Yes. So as well as our physical actions, we also have to remember that action is carried out by the body first, by the sense organs of action. Action is also in the speech. So right now we are maybe just sitting. The body apparently is not performing any action, but there is speech. So that is also a type of action. And there is also action which happens at the mental level, right? At the level of the mind. So even if we may not physically be doing anything, repeated thought also produces its own result. And I think this is what I take anyway as the law of attraction, is when we think in a particular way, then that will definitely yield its own result. And therefore, we also have to be very careful, not only about what we do and what we say, but also about how we think, to ensure that we are thinking positively. We are thinking in a compassionate and loving way, not only towards others, but towards ourselves as well. This is very important. Yes.
Thank you so much. The second question I have is, what are the types of karmas and how are they different from each other?
The type of karma, so there are different ways of understanding karma. I'm not sure if this listener has a particular classification in mind that they're wanting to hear about, but so we can classify karma in terms of how it fits into what we should and shouldn't do. So there in the Gita, for example, Bhagavan talks about niyata karma. That means our enjoined karma, what we should do. So daily duties, duties that are required on special occasions. one type or two types together, then there is also what we call, so this is our sort of vidhi, right? This is actions that are enjoined. As well as that, you have nishedha, right? Or nishiddha karma, which you should not do. So these are three. Then the fourth is kamya karma. So kamya, desire prompted action. And the fifth is prayashchitta. So if you, by mistake, you do anything wrong, then there are certain actions that can be done to alleviate the negative effect of that negative action. So karma can be classified in this way. You also have a classification of sanchita, prarabdha, and agami karma, which is, so prarabdha, actions which are giving results now. Sanchita means our sort of bank of stored actions that we've done in the past, and agami, in the future. So this is just two ways of classifying karma that are relevant here.
Thank you so much, Shripriya ji. The third question I have is there any luck playing a part of our results, or is it always due to our actions? What determines luck for some and not for others?
So there isn't really any space for luck in in karma siddhanta, because everything that we experience is the result of some action that we performed. What there is space for, when we say that, you know, the right thing comes to us at the right time, right? Sometimes we think of that as luck, or it was lucky that I just happened to be there, or this person just happened to call me, or whatever it might be. Ultimately, who is presiding over all action and distributing the results of action is Ishvara, right? Is God. And therefore, what we call luck, if we understand it in this kind of context, in this framework, then actually what it is the grace of God. That the right thing happens to us at the right time is not just luck, it is grace that is present and evident in our life.
Thank you again. And I do have a Facebook question. Let me read it out there. How do we start practicing the oneness for some others who is not familiar with this concept? And what is the simplest way to explain?
To explain this idea of oneness. If we can recognize it for ourselves, then we will be equipped to explain it to others. Really, it's the most important thing that we first make an effort to recognize this oneness ourselves. It can be explained at different levels, right? So, like I mentioned, for example, the one thing that unites all people, however different we may be, is the very basic fact that we are all human beings. We are all looking for happiness. We are all looking for peace. So if nothing else is common between us, at least this much is. In this discussion that we've been having, what we are trying to recognize as that oneness is the self, which is different from body and mind, etc. And this is where, if we have understood it, then we can explain it, right? So the first thing is for us to recognize, am I my body, am I my mind, or am I something different? Once we see that, then we can try and explain that to others. Another way of looking at it is, what is said is, this entire creation is nothing but a manifestation of God, right? God's body. The universe is God's body. And therefore, what we are trying to see in all people and in all things is the presence of divinity. So if somebody is thinking in this way, then this is one way for them to understand that in all people, God is present. How can I recognize that? Okay. So there are different ways in which we can try and understand this, but first we have to recognize it within ourselves.
We have one more question. It's already 10:30. I was wondering if you have time to just summarize this one more question. There's just one left. If you can explain the deeper meaning behind this shloka with the practical example, which is the Gita chapter 4, verse 18. Those who see action in inaction and inaction in action are truly wise among humans, although performing all kinds of actions. They are yogis and masters of all these actions. If this can be summarized very briefly.
Sure.
With an example.
So there are two ideas here. The first is action in inaction. How is that so? Say there is someone who is very tired, right? You've had a long week, not only working at home, but your kids are at home, so you're homeschooling and you're having to manage everything on Zoom, do everything very busy. You had a long week. At the end of your long week, what you want to do, you sit down on the couch and you say, I'm not doing anything. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not doing anything, right? So you just sit, or maybe you lie down. For someone who is looking at you, they will say, this person is not acting, right? There is inaction. They are just lying down. But as the person who is lying down, what are you thinking? There is this very strong thought, I am not doing anything. So even that thought, I am not doing, that is also an action, right? There is a very strong sense of ego there. So in apparent inaction, in fact, there is still action. This is the first, action in inaction. What is the second? Inaction in action. This is where, for the realized person that Sri Krishna is discussing then in the Bhagavad Gita, that person, the self-realized one, has no identification with the body or the mind. And therefore, even if the body is walking, talking, sleeping, eating, the mind is thinking, because there is no identification with the body and mind, therefore, even if action is going on, in their understanding, their identity is as the actionless self, as the infinite self, right? So it's like, for example, when you sit in a car, right? You sit in a car and that car starts moving. You may not be doing anything, you're just a passenger. Right? Even as a passenger, you get carried along with that car. But if you step out of the car can go anywhere and you are not moving. Right? The difference is not in what the body is doing or what the mind is doing. The difference in these two things which he says, action in inaction and inaction in action, the difference is in the understanding, the identity that is being held with regard to that body and mind. I hope this is clear.
Very clear. Thank you so much, Shripriya ji. That's all for questions. Once again, thank you very much for gracing your occasion on our Vichara Dashakam series. We will wrap up now with the Shanti mantra, and we'll do that now. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudakshate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva vashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you everyone once again for attending. Om Namo Narayanaya. Thank you.
Thank you.